Thanks for tuning into this episode of Through Jeremiah's Eyes. Today, I'm joined by the very special guest who I met at Friday Harbor Laboratories last summer during my previous internship. We're currently in Phoenix, Arizona at a conference presenting the research that we did. Today, we're going to be talking about not only what it means to be Black in STEM and education, but also the battles that we face due to this throughout school and also various opportunities that we have. So, Ayomikun, if you could introduce yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Ayomikun Akinrinade. I'm a senior at University of Washington, Bothell. I'm a public health major. I'm minoring in biology. And so I've really focused on biology for the past 4 years. And so I'm going into a PhD program this upcoming fall for evolutionary biology. And so I'll just tell you what the options are so far. So I got into Howard. I got an interview at UC Irvine and Washington University in St. Louis, then waiting to hear back from University of Washington and Louisiana State. So really excited.
Perfect.
Yeah, really excited for all of those. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I'm also Nigerian. And so fun story, I guess, is that I was so my parents are from Nigeria, obviously. And so my parents were on vacation. And so they went to my aunt's place and my mom was like, I'm too pregnant to go back. So she just had me in the US, and then we lived in Nigeria for a year and came back to the US. And
that's crazy.
Yeah, so I was born in Baltimore, but I've lived in South Bend, Indiana, where University of Notre Dame is, and then Chicago for 2 years, and then Bellingham, Washington. My family's been there since 2008.
So been all over everywhere.
Yeah, been everywhere.
Mini homes.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, it's been great.
That's cool though. That's something that you could write a book about. That could be the intro to your autobiography. Talking about this story.
Yeah.
Oh, that's dope though. Just a little introduction into deep dive into more so of your grad school journey that you're about to undertake. What was your first research experience or your first experience within research?
Okay, yeah. So I'll start with my very, very first touch into research. Yeah. And so that was back when was that? That was back before my junior year of high school, I think. Maybe before my senior year. Mm-hmm. And so I did this camp at Oregon State. It's called SESI. I think it's like a science and engineering something experience for youth or whatever. And you got to spend like a week or two, I want to say, where you just like helped a professor do research.
Yeah.
And so it's strictly for high schoolers, and I loved it so much.
Yeah, I was about to say that sounds dope, just being able to be even exposed to that in high school, because I was not exposed to that in high school.
Yeah, and so that from there I was like, I want to get a PhD.
Yeah.
Like I want to do research for the rest of my life. And so while I was there, so at the time when I was in high school, I actually wanted to do mechanical engineering.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went into this robotics lab with Dr. E. Mengutz. And so, but I don't know if he's still teaching there, but he was just so nice. And I worked with his undergraduates, and I made like a soft robot, like a soft robotic, it was like, imagine like fingers, but made out of silicone and air tubes. Like it was it was just really fun. And so that was like my first thing, but my first serious like research experience was at University of Washington, Bothell. I'll just call it UW Bothell from now on. And so that was, I'm still actually working on the project now, and it's on coral microbiomes and how they relate to disease. And so there's one hypothesis about corals, and that's the coral probiotic hypothesis. And that is that it posits that there is a symbiotic relationship between corals and like bacteria, and just like within that stay inside their little polyps.
And symbiotic meaning that it benefits both of them?
Yeah, benefits. So the coral they provide a shelter for like bacteria, and they also, so these are like phytoplankton, right?
Mhm.
So they're photosynthesizing, and so the way that corals are shaped, they reflect all the sunlight that comes through the water, and it makes it so the bacteria can produce even
Yeah.
more sugar, which the coral then use,
So then,
and then
yeah.
yeah, and so yeah, and so
That's a relationship everybody needs to have.
yeah, for sure, for sure. And so um looking at, so the probiotic part of it is that that the bacteria are actually helping the coral stay healthy, right?
Mhm.
And so that's what we're testing with this project. And so we found actually that well, in preliminary results, that the that an increase in microbiome diversity actually led to a decrease in this disease called skeletal eroding band, which essentially, like, if you just like saw a coral, imagine a band straight around it, just like eroding until you get to the skeleton. So yeah, it's terrible for the coral, but it's really it's great that we found that we
Yeah.
found some kind of relationship between their microbiome. So
Mhm.
we looked at like microbiome richness, and so
And what do you mean by microbiome
yeah,
richness?
I'll explain that. Sorry. So just like the diversity of like organisms that are in the microbiome, like different bacteria that are there. And so yeah, that's that's kind of my first real big research
Research
experience.
adventure?
Yeah, research venture. And I've done a few more, but that's one that's really stuck with me and maybe helped me realize a lot of things about like how I really want to do stuff like because all the work I do is computational.
Mhm.
There's other people on the team that do the actual field work.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I realized I really like working in front of a computer, which I realize is not for everybody. But, you know.
And what interests you the most about your research? Is that the most interesting piece of research that you're doing, or is there another one?
It's probably like the research, that research right there is probably what would get like most people excited, because everybody loves coral, you know,
Yeah.
you hear about it since you're young. But one piece of research that I'm particularly proud of, I'd say, is this project on the evolution of gill rakers and
Mhm.
surf perches. And so I can explain each part of that. So
Yeah, I was gonna say because
yeah, yeah.
no idea.
And so gill rakers are these. So so you know what gills are, right?
Mhm.
So when next time the listener or you have a fish in front of you, you can see that little flap on the side of their head if you lift that up, you'll see some little filaments that will be the gills. And on the left side of that, or on the other side of the gills, you'll see these little hooks. And so those are called gill rakers, and they help filter food out of the water.
Yeah.
But they also protect the gills from getting damaged.
Yeah.
So they can catch rocks and sand and all that. And so that's what I'm studying, how the gill rakers change, these little filters change in a family that happens to be really good for studying that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so surf perches are like, the family is called Ambiotocidae, and they're this really small family. It's only 23 species, but they're really ecologically diverse. There's a fish, the pile perch. I can't Rickettkylos vaca, if you care for the or Phanerodon vaca at this point. And so it solely just eats hard shelled prey. So it'll eat snails, crabs, all that. And so it it's you can imagine that the filtering that you need to do for something like snails is super different than what you would need to do for plankton, for example, because plankton are just these little bitty things, right? So they're just swimming through the water. You're just catch. So there's fish like what is it? Embiotic lateralis. I want to say that's right. I should know this, but embiotic lateralis filter feeding primarily, and so it's just catching. It's just
Absolutely, whatever.
ram feeding
Yeah.
and catching whatever's going through the water, which is plankton, and so those will get caught in the gill rakers as well. And so what you need, like to filter out a snail, is super different than filtering out these tiny little particulates, right? And so that's what I'm trying to study. Like how does this filter change with different feeding habits?
Mhm.
And so yeah, I presented that research. So we're at a conference right now, and so I presented it at last year's conference virtually. So yeah, that was really fun. And so yeah, that's probably the work that I'm most proud of, because it's I started in January 2020, and the project was really just an idea at that point, and so I've taken it and it's become this very I've taken it and gotten it to a point where it's presentable, and so we're writing about it. So I feel great. I feel So I'd say that's what I'm most proud of at this point.
That's really dope. That's really dope. And the conference that we're at is called SICBI, the Society of Integrative and Comparative Biology, in Phoenix, Arizona. So we're both presenting some research that we've done, and then also networking, meeting a whole bunch of different people, hearing about their research, their opportunities that they have. I don't even know. It's just crazy.
It's the best.
Yeah.
You get to it's so nice, because no matter where you go, you'll find, like, you can walk into any room and you'll find something really cool.
Yeah, and everything is something new all the time.
Learn something crazy. Like, I found out today that endotherms and ectotherms, things that regulate their own temperature and things that don't regulate their own temperature, they have the same body.
Their body temperature is the same.
It's no different, which is crazy, because like
it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't
logically, but I don't know.
Yeah,
it's a fact, because there's been research done on it. Like, that's just the little things that you don't know that you can relate to everyday life.
Yeah, and it's just like the world around you, you get a better understanding of it.
Yes, because we really don't understand anything.
Yeah.
To be honest.
That's the thing. Like, as you learn so much more, like you realize how much you don't know.
Yeah.
And so it's you don't know, but it's in a fun way.
Yeah.
It's not scary. It's like,
it's like an intriguing, interesting, like, why is this way? Why does that affect that? And then being able to deep dive into it, get told, no, this, what you thought is not right. So you got to go back and try and take it back from square one, over and over again.
Yep.
It's fun.
That's the career I want, so I get to ask questions for a living, so
which is fun, being able to tackle a whole bunch of different stuff. And the reason that we're here is because of the internship that we did last summer at Friday Harbor Laboratories through the RU Blinks internship. And one of the big things about Friday Harbor was the diversity that was included in our cohort. So the directors of the program, Dr. Stacy Farina and Dr. Adam Summers, they structured the internship in the REU so that it is full of diversity, so that minorities and people in underrepresented communities are able to get this type of research experience. And that was one of the things I really appreciated about Friday Harbor. Just tying into that, how does being Black and specifically Nigerian affect your identity to you, and how do you see yourself and also to others, do you think? I know that's like a fully loaded question.
No, yeah, this has been something I've been poring over. I've just thought about so much in the past year. It's a really complicated relationship, because when I lived in Bellingham, that place is like, I think when I moved there, it was about 80-something% white, high 80s. It still is. And I was the only Black person at my, I was one of 2-3 Black people in my grade, and even when I was graduating high school, I think there was maybe a total of 3 Black people in that room that weren't our family members, you know?
That's absolutely insane.
Yeah, it was crazy. And so like I had this really, really hard time like negotiating like what does blackness even mean to me?
Yeah.
Because I don't see it around me. All I have is my family, you know?
Yeah.
And so I had this really like I really didn't have a great relationship with it. Because all I really saw was that people just treat you worse, you know?
Yeah.
And like that was all I knew. And then like just black people on TV, you know? Like
Yeah.
that's a terrible representation
Yeah.
of actual black people. Because like when you meet other black people, it's great. Like
Yeah.
it's like
It's like I see you, you understand me and where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
That exact same thing that you're saying, just growing up in a predominantly white area, it's just like you don't really understand what it means to be black. Because I had that
Yeah.
same identity crisis type thing.
Yeah. And then there's also the fact that I'm Nigerian and I'm an immigrant, right?
Yeah, so then that's even more so.
Yeah. And so like being an immigrant, there's always this otherness, like, oh, like I'm not like, am I American? Like
Yeah.
I was born in America and I've lived here all my life, but like when I go home, that's not like mashed potatoes and gravy, you know. That's jollof and fufu, you know. Like so, it's a super different. It would that's I'm still negotiating it now. Like yeah, I'm still figuring it out. But I think being at the RU was like as late as it was in my life, you know. Like I mean, I'm 21, so that's not super late, but you know. But it was still like it was this really great experience where I got to meet like 5 other black people.
Yeah.
Because that's more than I've met in Bellingham.
Yeah.
You know, like it's really there's you see like the occasional black person. Like everybody that we know is family friends.
Yeah.
Like
that's pretty much how it is for me. It was like in high school, it was I was taking AP and dual enrollment classes. So there was just a few of my black friends that were in there, and it was the same black people that were taking the same AP and DE classes. So that's the only black people I really interacted with. I was seen as the white black kid.
Oh, yeah.
So that was the whole thing.
That was
and then same thing with just family friends were the other black people I knew that I was exposed to, and then also family, which live in North Carolina and LA and Alabama. So it's like I don't really see them that often.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm not exposed to it like that. I just hear the stereotypes and as you're saying, like on TV and social media.
Yeah, that's all you got.
And then it's like they'll try and spin it so that black people are seen as like big and scary and
violent, you know.
Yeah. And it's like that's not what it is at all.
Not at all.
We're just all people.
We're all just children.
Yeah.
And so it was really so the RU was this great experience for me. And like I remember back in high school, I was like, should I apply to an HBCU?
Yeah.
I was like, I mean, like, you know, the people that were calling me the like white black kid, they were white. So it was like the black people don't view me as white. Like they know I'm black. Like, and so it was just like I totally counted myself out. I was like, absolutely not. I would not fit in at all. And then like again, like it was all I saw was black people on TV, black people on social media. Yeah. Like I had one black friend, you know. And so but after that RU, I was like, maybe I should apply to Howard. Yeah. Like Howard is great. Like it would be really cool to like have that experience of being with other black people.
Yeah, being surrounded by black people 24/7.
Yeah, and like just black excellence. Yes. And it's like, and not that let me hedge that.
I know exactly what you're talking
about. Black people do not have to be excellent to be valid or whatever. Yeah. But it's still like I really it would like it would just be incredible to be surrounded by that kind of culture. Yeah. And just have that experience. And like the alumni that are from Howard is there's no scrubs, you know. Like you got Thurgood Marshall, Chadwick Boseman. Not exactly a bad spot to be at. You know, the vice president went to Howard. So and just like I could go on and on about the alumni from Howard. but like how many other schools
Yeah.
like produce that kind of those
That
kind of
talent,
people,
yeah.
that kind of talent, like it, like okay, I won't disparage any of the schools I applied to, but what I'll skip that. I'll skip that. But
I know exactly what
you
you
get
mean.
what I mean, though, right?
Yeah, because
So
going to A&T, it's like come from a predominantly white area, and then going to A&T. Even my first visit, I was just talking about this on my last podcast with my mom about my first visit, and I was just like, I just looked around and I was like, this is like my school. This is what I see in society, but it's literally in reverse. And it's like that just felt so good. And I saw people doing research. I saw people having conversations, which may seem like a little thing, but seeing a whole bunch of Black people just be able to chill and have a conversation out in public was like something that I didn't really see.
yeah,
So that was like a big thing for me. And then also, as you were saying, like all the alumni and seeing all the stuff that they're doing, like there's the running back for the Chicago Bears, he's from A&T.
oh wow,
There's just so many, there's so much that goes in with going to an HBCU and just being surrounded by that Black excellence, as you were saying.
yeah,
Seeing people not what society portrays us as, and seeing them actually doing work and being surrounded by that just makes you be like, yeah, I can do this. I have a community that supports me and that's doing the same thing. So I'm gonna keep on going so that I can prove myself, to my family, to them, everything. It's just all like it all flows together.
And just being at an HBCU, it's like I imagine it's just so validating.
Yeah,
like because America's so built around like you like about it's just so built around Blackness being nothing. Like since the beginning of the country, like Black people were property.
Yeah,
Black people were segregated, and so there's still that today, but it's still like it's nonstop.
Yeah.
And so you're constantly made to feel like you shouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah.
Like going back to the me being quote unquote the white black
kid.
Like it's why am I quote unquote white?
Yes, right? Like what is the definition of being white? Is it because I can articulate myself? Yeah. Is it because I'm doing stuff that you think that I shouldn't be able to do? It's like it doesn't make sense.
Is it because I don't use AVE?
Yeah.
Like why is it like I don't use AVE so a lot, and so it's just like why are you disarmed by hearing me speak? You know, like you're hesitant and then you hear me speak and you're fine. That shouldn't be the case, like there shouldn't have been any
that like implicit bias, predisposition that you may have with somebody.
Yeah, and so just to like bring it back around, like the US and the US just makes you feel like you're not supposed to be anything. Yeah. And so being at Howard, we're full of many people who are something, like people who are doing great things, who are just people, that are clearly doing well. You go out to Howard, but like it's very validating to see like, okay, like we are here, we're supposed to be here, and we're gonna stay here. Yeah.
And it's just that support that you feel.
Yeah.
So I love my HBCUs.
Yeah.
Is it ever sort of like an imposter syndrome type feel? Like, yeah, like an imposter syndrome type feel, but because of maybe not because of qualifications or feeling like you're not worthy enough because you're not as smart as somebody else, which is all just like a mental game. Yeah. But more so because of race and how like you may feel out of place because of that. For example, like again, tying in with the being seen as like quote unquote the white Black kid, just taking that even further into what you're doing now with research or just even at this conference in general.
Yeah, it's really like I think my like I probably okay. So I'll say imposter syndrome has probably been an issue for me for a while. And I think it was initially fostered, like I had always been like a little bit like insecure about myself, since I was like a kid. But I remember there was a few instances where like they were really like, oh my God, I'm not supposed to be here, Thankfully I got through them, but so sixth grade, I was in So going into sixth grade, there was like a aptitude test or whatever to see if you could take seventh grade, like put onto
like the advanced class.
Yeah, the advanced math classes. It was like strictly for math. Like you're placed in the advanced math classes and you just keep going on. I ended up taking like Calc BC in high school, right? AP Calc BC. Anyway, but I was placed. I didn't initially test into the seventh grade math program. So you would take seventh grade math in sixth grade. And so I didn't test into that at first. But my fifth grade teacher, Miss Pritchard, shout out Miss Pritchard, Miss Shirley Pritchard, she's incredible. She's teaching at high school now. I actually just connected with her recently to thank her because I was like, hey, I got into a PhD program.
Amazing.
But I should let you know, the reason why I'm here. But so she wrote a letter to actually get me into that class.
Oh, that's dope.
Yeah. And so I was placed into seventh grade math. And I was like, what am I doing here? Like, I'm not supposed to be here. Yeah. But I was like, you know what, cool. I'll just do it. And then I remember parent teacher conferences came around and I was getting like B pluses on average, Bs. And the teacher was like, I think Ayomikun should switch into sixth grade math. And I was like,
That's wild.
I was a big crier back when I was younger, and I just sobbed. I sobbed. I left the room, and I was like, "What?" Oh, I was just in distress. And then
that's crazy.
Yeah, like imagine hearing that when you're like 11.
Yeah, that's like what? How do you tell a kid that?
Yeah, and so I found out later that the other underrepresented minority, who was Latino, he was asked to leave the classroom. Nobody else was asked. There were kids that were getting worse grades than me that were not asked. And they ended up dropping the class.
That's wild.
Yeah. And so it was just like,
that's that whole systemic thing.
Yeah, it's just it's everywhere. It's everywhere. And so that was like every day after that, during that class, I was like, I shouldn't be here. I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not supposed to be here. He later apologized for it. But he didn't apologize to me. He apologized to my parents.
Yeah.
But yeah, they had a meeting. It was a big meeting. It was,
like, that's crazy. Somebody would even say that, not only to a kid, but then also for the reason. It's obvious.
Yeah. And then I remember, I think it was sixth grade, where I won't say the names of the teachers, but sixth grade English, I wrote an essay. It was, I don't know, it was an essay or something like that. And the teacher was like, hey, did you cheat on this? I was like, no. Like, I think at the time I got confused and was like, yes, or like something like where I did not, I never cheated. I did not cheat through middle school.
Yeah.
Like middle school is not a place to cheat. But I was like, I think I just got like really overwhelmed and said something. But she like publicly embarrassed me in front of my entire class. And was like, why would you cheat? Why would you cheat? Why would you have someone else write this for you? I was like, I didn't know. And so what had actually happened was I got confused. So there was a point where I was like so exhausted from typing that my mom was like, you say the words, I will write them out for you. And so it was clearly my work. Like she didn't change anything. She, like, I saw her typing it, you know. But I was like, yeah, someone wrote it for me. No, I wrote it for me. So, it was text to speech before text to speech. And so that was, but she apologized for it later. But it was still like, you're not supposed to get this good. Your writing's not supposed to be this good. Yeah, it can't be this good. You must have cheated your way through it. It's like that at the impactful years of your life when you're like going through trying to figure out who you are in this world and trying to actually learn stuff, and then you're like, oh, I'm learning stuff, but you're not supposed to learn stuff this well. Like it's wild. It's ridiculous. And it even extended into high school. Oh my goodness. But I tell you that, like, being in Bellingham was rough for me. Like, it was nonstop, like, just people reminding you, you shouldn't be good or whatever, And so unless it was sports,
Yeah.
oh, then you
should be amazing. If
Yeah,
you're
you
not
should be
amazing,
great.
then there's a problem.
Yeah. And so
And then it's also, if you're good at sports, then it's because you're black. It's not because
Yeah.
you actually put in time or effort,
No.
or just because you're actually nice at said sport.
Yeah. And so I remember my AP Calc teacher. It was for AP Calc AB, the first AP Calc class, and I like again. I think I got a B plus in that class, but the teacher was like, "I think you should drop the class." And like, I think you should retake it next year. I was like, "No,
There's no need.
absolutely not.
Yeah.
I made it this far.
Yeah.
Like, I'm doing it.
And if you're doing well in it,
yeah, I
doesn't make any
wasn't
sense.
doing poorly.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the other kids did better, but I was still like, yeah, that's like a B plus is not bad.
Yeah.
And so so B plus, and then I ended up getting a 4 on the AP test. So I did pretty well.
Yeah, look at me now.
Yeah, look at me now. I'm about to do a PhD. Okay, so take that, mister. I almost said his name.
Yeah, I say no name dropping. Unless they're
drops.
supportive.
Name dropping. No name dropping. But yeah, so that's like the start of it. But I'd say I'll try to make the rest of it brief. I've dealt with imposter syndrome, and it's not helped by the fact that the expectation for Black people is low, and that you're not supposed to exceed that low expectation, or else you're doing something wrong, or you're cheating your way through the system. Like this. Oh my God, you never stop hearing about people be like, oh, they got that job because they're Black.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Oh, it drives me crazy. I remember I was on Instagram one time, and someone was like, I bet you got into your school because you're Black.
Oh.
And I was like, oh my God, what in the world?
So,
like, I did pretty. I ended up with a 3.5 in high school. I wasn't a scrub. Like I held my own. So it's just like you never hear the end of it.
Yeah.
And then, gosh, I remember there was this tweet recently, and this is about women, but it was just like this guy was like, half of women should were hired over. Over more qualified men. Yeah. It was ridiculous. Like it's just like the patriarchy and racism just
the mindset of
they just dominate the US. And dominate everywhere really.
Yeah.
But it's just like in academia, you really, really feel it.
You feel it, yeah.
Because it's like academia is supposed to be a meritocracy, right? Like you're supposed to you got here because you did well.
Yeah.
And so people will never think, oh, they were hired because they did well.
Yeah.
It's because, oh, they're hired because she's a woman, or hired because she's Black, or hired because he's Black, or whatever, And so, or just hired because they're a minority, or it's just ridiculous. And so it's really, really hard to deal with. And then you hear about your friends, and you're like, oh, like you just want it to be better. And so that's something that I really want to do. Like bring more minorities into STEM so we can deal with less of the constant
and challenges and battles.
Yeah,
it's just the weight.
Because when you have someone be your boss, there's no question about whether you're whether they're qualified. They're your boss, So, like when you see people all around you, it definitely makes it feel less like being at HBCU.
Yeah,
when you're surrounded by other Black people.
You feel less alone.
You feel less alone. You feel like you're here because you're valid. Yeah, you're like you've made it here for a reason,
and you have that community.
Yeah, and that other people can see they're here for a reason. Yeah, so that's a big thing for me.
That's one of the things that happened to me in high school. Like imposter syndrome. It was like I got like faint hints of it, but my mom and dad, they always were like, no, you're doing well. You may have to work 2 to 3 times harder, 10 times harder, to be honest, just to be seen as equal to your peers. So that was something that helped me fight imposter syndrome and everything.
Yeah.
But I can't forget, like, this one day in high school, I was in a library, and everybody, it was my senior year, everybody was talking about where they got into and all this different stuff. And I got a full ride scholarship to A&T.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, this is cool. I
Yeah.
don't have to pay for college.
Yeah,
and then it was just, we were walking with a few people I was walking with a few people in the library, and somebody said that it was because of affirmative action that I got the scholarship. I was like, there ain't no way you just said that to me. You don't know what my GPA is. You don't know what my class rank is. You don't know what my SAT score is. You don't know what my ACT score is. I'm not telling you for a reason, but just because you don't know doesn't mean that I shouldn't get something just because I'm qualified for it. It's you can say it's affirmative action. You can say whatever it is, but that's still probably about $100,000 investment that somebody's making into me because they believe in my future and my dreams and what I've done.
Yeah.
So clearly it's not just, oh, because you're Black.
Yeah.
That's money. So you don't just throw money at nothing.
Yeah.
So I'm not nothing. I don't think I'm nothing.
Absolutely. Knowing you, absolutely not.
But that's literally I feel like that's like the one moment that I was like, yeah, this is crazy. The world is even crazier than I thought. Because to be able to say that to me, to my face, you can hold that.
Yeah.
I'm straight with it.
Yeah.
But speaking of you saying that you want to be able to change that in the future, what changes or thoughts, pretty much like advice, would you give to schools about making minorities like ourselves feel more comfortable? Whether like if they make an REU or just in general, high schools, middle schools, colleges, just to make the environment more comfortable?
That's a really, really good question. And
thank you.
I think like there's so much to do. But I think the way I plan on making my little dent in this massive issue.
We all got to keep on.
Yeah, we like this has to be an all hands on deck effort, you know? Like everybody has to be in for this to work. But I think one thing that you like I always heard for other people like in this field is always like I really like just like how it was fostered. Like I'm a biologist, right?
Yeah.
So the love of biology was fostered at a very young age. And so I think it's really important to do that. And I think it's also important to foster that at later stages. Because I thought I was going to do engineering from the ages of 8 to 18. And then I took a public health class and I was like, I like this.
And then because once you're exposed to it, your mind can change just completely.
Yeah. And so I think one of my dream jobs is to work in a museum and be a curator. And I think tailoring like museum exhibits to those who are underrepresented would be great.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Like, for example, I'm coming up with this off the top of my head, but like if like let's say I'll take my city for example. Or no, let's take Seattle. There's Duwamish land.
Yeah.
So what fishes were used in that area by the native people of that land? That is a great thing to like. That's showing
connecting to the culture,
connecting to the culture that you're whose land you're on.
Yeah,
you know, and so that's just like a little thing, or just like little things like that, like showing people that they are a part of this.
Yeah,
they're like it's not just the white people, Darwin, Thomas Huxley.
Yeah,
it's not all these white people that you see that are making these exhibits. Like you need to see like, hey,
everybody that had a part in it.
Everybody's like the people that are making these exhibits are people that look like me.
Yeah,
you know, or people that care about people that look like
me.
Or
I think that's really important. I think getting people, obviously, it's hard to get people in when you don't have efforts at the beginning. So I think museums are a great way to do that. You expose a lot of people. You can
And it's
have
fun and interactive.
Yeah, it's really fun. Like, who doesn't love a museum, right? So I think you can really you can connect with a lot of people that way.
Yeah.
Like, I was amazed when I saw a T-Rex when I was in Chicago and I saw the T-Rex in the lobby.
Cause you're like, whoa, this thing is gigantic.
Yeah, like this thing was living at one point, and now it's in a museum. Like I remember, yeah, it was just like this wonder that I had. But like I will not lie, like being in Bellingham, all my teachers were white, you know, and so it was like I didn't see myself represented by the people who were interested in history or interested in biology or whatever, and so I just never considered it, you know. But I knew that there were Black mechanical engineers, so I was like, okay, you know. But I enjoyed mechanical engineering, but I think, yeah, my little dent that I'll make into this big problem, I would like to do museum work, and I would also like to get underrepresented students into research.
Yeah,
because I think a really really big problem is just like access to research.
Yeah,
you know, there's plenty. How many smart kids? How many incredibly talented kids just didn't get an opportunity?
Yeah,
you know, like just didn't get the opportunity at their university.
Yeah.
And so I think programs like the REUs.
Yeah, I was about to say like FHL, that's one of the big things that I liked about that was that they were actually giving people in underrepresented communities that from minorities that they're giving them that chance to be exposed to research. Like my first little tap into research was at North Carolina A&T my freshman year, but that also got cut short because of COVID.
Oh yeah.
So I was barely in there. And then now this REU is like a whole new world is open. I didn't know that how PhDs worked. I didn't know you had to go and talk to a PI and find a PI.
Yep.
I didn't know that you had to like all the grad school application. I didn't know applying to grants. You did that for grad school.
Yeah.
I didn't know you get paid from grants. I didn't know all the resources and everything that you had to do for research. It's just like a whole nother world that you don't hear about, and you only hear about the discoveries from old white guys.
Yeah, and you also just hear about it in the news. And so in the news, it's very much like, oh, scientists discover this. Like, and you never hear like the grueling hours that made that, or the people that like you never really hear about you don't hear about the research assistants. You don't hear about all that. But yeah, I think programs like the REU program from the NSF are great because it brings in minoritized students that I think like even then I think like I'm not gonna lie, I benefited from this, like having research experience already. You know, I did choral stuff and I did I've had my Gillraker project since 2020, since right before the pandemic, and it's like I think there are let me just hedge this by saying there are programs that do prioritize students that don't have research experience. Yeah. But I think that can become a problem. Yeah. And I think it, in my opinion, I think that is a problem in academia, that we prioritize people that have like there's such a heavy prioritization of people that have experience that the people that you like. Okay, so let's take for example, okay.
You're saying like the development kind of like once you expose people to it and then they're interested in it and want to keep on going with it, that you're not putting in the time or resources to develop them.
It's like you like a grad school wants to take its safest bet. Mm-hmm. You know, like it wants a student that's going to come in, do research, get them grants, and get out. You know, in like 5 years. Yeah. Or 6 years, you know, whatever, in a reasonable amount of time. And so, and you, it leads to you get prioritized. like I was prioritized because I did research already.
Yeah.
But in all honesty, I didn't need that.
Yeah.
I probably could have gone into grad school with the research that I already had. But this pushed me over the hump. But like, what about the student that didn't have any research experience?
Yeah.
That just really needed something.
Yeah.
Like, where's that for them?
And that was one of the things for me, trying to figure out like how I'm supposed to get experience when I don't have experience to show that I'm interested in it. I can tell you all day, but if you don't actually believe it, if you weren't shown it, then that's more of a risk for you.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that risk kind of needs to be taken.
Yeah, because we're like the people who have access to research experience are usually affluent people.
Yeah.
Because if you can afford not to have a job while you do research, you're clearly in a position
fine.
You're fine.
Yeah.
Like my parents are paying for my college.
Yeah.
And they're paying for my housing. So I'm able to do stuff like research.
Yeah.
But if I didn't have a job, there's no way I could get research
Yeah.
done. There's absolutely no way. And school? No. And so it's just like, so I think that's something science really needs to take a look at. Is like, who are we prioritizing?
Yeah.
Because if we keep prioritizing the people that have access, we're just going to end up in the same place we started. Affluent, rich, affluent and rich. Affluent white people. We need and people that affluent white and parents that are
like
people
legacy.
that are not first gen.
Yeah, legacy people.
Yeah, like people that are first gen, people that are in minority groups, people that are not like rich,
yeah,
or not affluent, can't, like, it's so much harder.
Any situation that's not
just perfectly ideal.
Yeah, it's like it just makes it 10 times harder to even be able to do anything. And then already being a minority, that's a whole nother thing.
Yep.
So it's just like things tack on one after another. And that's that whole exposure thing, trying to expose people.
Yeah.
And then also from a young age, just being able to try to expose people.
Yeah.
Because as you were saying, how impactful some of those things that your teacher said, like imagine if they said something positive, if they were trying to be helpful, like that simple thing, that emotion that you were filled with, that was negative emotion. What if that was positive emotion? You don't even know what that could have done for a kid.
Yeah.
And there's so many kids that are told that day after day, and that don't have that support system and backing them, and that aren't as fortunate. So just being able to have that exposure, being able to have that support, just giving that chance to those people, I feel like it's pretty much invaluable at this point.
Yeah.
And even to this day, like in high school, the new National African American History Museum that they made, I went there through this program called I Am Inspiring African American Males. So at the high school, it was a group of African American males, and we would go to a local elementary school, and we would take some of the Black male students from out of their classes and be able to help them with their homework, talk to them about life, about just everything in general, just so they can see that there are people in the high school that are pursuing their education, also doing sports, because a lot of them were interested in sports, just that they can be what they want and they can do what they want to. But we were able to go to the National African American History Museum, and just that, like, exposure to that, even as a high school student, that was like, this is crazy. I didn't even know that we had this rich of history. I wasn't taught this.
It's
like
crazy.
You don't know like how much Black history is just painted over, that's just covered up, just because they try and hold us down at the end of the day.
Yeah. Are you talking about the Smithsonian one?
Yeah.
Yeah. I went there with my girlfriend, and that was incredible. That was incredible.
Insane. And then at A&T, pretty much the same thing, just being exposed to that. It's just, you don't see that every day. And when you're exposed to it, no matter what age you're at, that just gives you more motivation. So that's one of the things that I also want to do. Be able to make programs and be able to make, so as you were saying, you want to be able to curate for a museum. I want to be able to have or build up a business and name this, so I do a whole bunch of different stuff. I'm interested in a whole bunch of different things, but be able to tie it all back into being able to have the funds to be able to say that you want to be a curator for the museum. You want to be able to have like the creative control over the museum and programs and everything, be able to have you and a team of people, and then give you guys the funds to be able to give you guys the resources, the facility to be able to make stuff like that happen. Because that's just like, that's so needed in today's world. And I just want to, I feel like that's my way of trying to make an impact. I'm
sure.
trying to gather all the resources to be able to make sure that everybody can do what they need to.
Yeah, I think people, the great, as hard as it is, I think one great silver lining is that there's people already doing it.
Yeah.
There's people really, really trying.
And that's more motivation. That's like, I can see it happening. So it's like, why can't that be me too?
Yeah.
Why can't I be the next person?
The party?
Yeah. So, like everybody, come on. We're gonna make this happen.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's the big thing. Make programs, get people involved at an early age. Those are the big things.
Has any of that approached your search for grad school, or what grad school you're picking, whether they have programs or how comfortable they make you feel, or if they're making efforts in the realm of diversity, equity, diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Yeah, that was actually something that it played a big part in like what I was doing. One thing that was pretty important to me throughout this process was that I find a mentor that has worked with people of color before.
Yeah.
Like there's no way that I'm working with someone that only works with white people.
Yeah.
Like there's enough people of color in our field in evolutionary biology, which is so broad. There's enough people
that there's a question to be asked.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's not by chance.
Yeah, like you're centering like this one group,
Yeah.
And so that was something that was important to me, and so that was kind of tough because there was like sometimes where I was like, this person's cool, but they have no history of working with people of color. So I just yeah, so that's something that played a part in my search. Gosh. Well, yeah, and then for like having diversity programs or programs centered around diversity was really important to me. And so looking at the DEI statements of, but like
some can be buttered up.
Yeah, some can be not. You can tell when they're just making up fluff, or when they don't have a DEI statement. That's a bit concerning. Not too worried about Howard, but yeah, I think that's something that definitely played a part in picking schools, picking professors that I want to work with, and making sure there was this one advisor that I was talking to, and so he was great, and he was like, even from the jump, he was like I know as a white man I will not fully understand like all the things that go on in your life, and so I want to make sure that there's things available for you at the school, and like there's people at the school that can help you go through whatever this is, and I'll try to help you however I can. And I was like, this is a guy that gets it. He understands that he does not. He understands that he doesn't.
That he doesn't understand.
Yeah. And so like just little things like that were like so.
And that means so much because a lot of people don't go out of their way to say something like that.
Yeah.
But that can mean the world. That could be a game changer on how you view somebody.
Yeah. It was definitely like it was a really I wasn't super interested in his lab at first because I was like, this research not super my thing. But I've I think it's, I mean, his research is super cool. It's brain stuff.
Yeah.
But it's just like, it's like evolution of the brain type stuff.
Yeah.
But it's just like, that was like, okay. Even if I'm not super into the research, he's a great mentor. He's going to be a great mentor. Because that's a point where I hear a lot of people struggling with, like, where they talk, like, you see, like, there isn't a day on Twitter where you don't hear about, like, someone's mentor being like something, just doing something, or like not understanding, and it's just like, that's exhausting.
Yeah.
So,
or that challenge can be more so, or it can be worse than doing something, not doing exactly what you want to do.
Yeah.
And you never know, maybe doing something that you didn't think that you wanted to do could turn into something that you're like, whoa, this is amazing. Plus, learning new stuff, you can relate it to absolutely anything, to be honest.
Yeah. So it's, and that's the big part of a PhD. Like, what your professor does is not exactly what you have to do. Like, and so I was a bit naive to that, but it was just, I'm more willing to do his kind of stuff now. And I know he's a great advisor. So that's all I have to say on that.
That's great, and I hope the best with everything grad school wise and all that. I'm looking at the same thing with vet school, just trying to figure out I'm looking at more so program wise, because it's more so kind of like undergrad, I guess, because I'm trying to get into the school. It'll be more so working like undergrad, I guess, just more classes, harder classes, more specific. But looking at the diversity numbers, as you were saying, diversity statements, looking at different programs that they have and stuff that they're doing. And then one of the things that I actually did while I was at Friday Harbor this past summer, I went through vet schools that I was looking at their staff directory, and then I came up with a list, and then, like, I don't even know how many people, over 70 people.
Oh my God.
And then, of course, it was a whole bunch of people, whether they were like deans or professors or the chair of this department, chair of that department. But I also looked through the staff directory and made sure that I at least emailed a few Black people that were working there, whether they were in the education department or the veterinary medicine department or whatever department that they were in, but just making sure that they were Black, to be able to have a meeting with them, be able to ask their experiences and everything, because that type of thing is meaningful to me in my search for what vet school I'm going to be going to next. Just like you were saying, it's a big part of what could, like, I guess, make or break what you feel about your exactly.
Because I don't know if I could tolerate someone for 5 years. That's a long relationship.
And then grad school, that's like with a mentor, it's like,
you're really close with these people.
You're going to be working with them. That's a relationship that you're going to have to maintain and make sure that it is kept well and it's healthy, because you're going to be working with them for the next however long. And a PhD is not short at all.
No, not at all. I am committing to the next 5 years of my life. So
it sounds dope though. So a tradition that I do to wrap up the episode, I have 2 questions. The first question being, what 3 things do you live by, or your 3 keys to life?
3 keys to life. You're ending off with the real big questions.
The next one may be worse.
Keys to life. Oh my God. I don't reflect enough. This okay. First key, just really being honest. Really be honest with yourself, be honest with the people around you. Because it's so hard to keep up. Like I'll just tie back real quick. Like, just like being surrounded by people that say, "Oh, you're like the whitest black guy," and then me finally being like, "Stop," like, that's me being honest about, like, with myself, like, this is hurting me. And like being honest with them, like,
and speaking up for yourself.
Speaking up for yourself. Just being, and honesty is just really, like, my relationships, friendships, all that have, like, really thrived on, what makes them strong is that I can be honest with them and they can be honest with me.
It's so important with everything. Any relationship.
Yeah, any relationship. Even being honest with professors, all that. So that's the first one. Second one. Can I stick with one? I feel like that's my best. That's my best content. Maybe
That was really
like
good though.
I might be able to come up with. I might be. I think that might be all I got.
All right. The second one, if you could have a conversation with a 12-year-old you, so like
Oh
just getting into high school, what would it be about and what advice would you give and why?
God, 12-year-old me was a mess. Oh my goodness. What was that? I was in 7th grade.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, what would I tell my 12-year-old self?
Yeah. What conversation would you have? What advice would you give them in those impactful years?
Those were some tough years. But I would probably say like it'll be okay. Like I know right now it's really hard and you don't know you're not super equipped to handle everything that's around you, but you'll figure it out. Like that's really, it's hard to hear you'll figure it out when you're in the really tough time of your life, but yeah, there was a lot that happened that year. But trust your gut, trust the people around you that you could trust, yeah, trust your gut and it'll all be all right. That's what I would say to my 12-year-old self. Yeah.
We love that.
Yeah.
That's great advice. Because that's also something that I would always like that I try and think of now. It's taking a step back and be like, it'll all work out how it's meant to work out as long as you keep on doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And just wanted to say thank you so much for joining me on this podcast and being a great friend in general as well.
Thank you for having me. This has been great. It's great having you as a friend. I'm really happy to have done this podcast. This is really fun.
Thank you. Anything you would like to promote? Shameless plug, things you have going on that you like to say something about, last words you like to leave with the audience.
Shameless plugs. Ooh, follow me on Twitter. Man. Follow me on Twitter.
I knew you were going to say that.
Ayomikun OA. AYOMIKUNOA. Follow me on there. Follow me on Instagram, man. What is my Instagram? Same thing, same deal. Same tag. Yeah, that's all I gotta promote.
I knew you were gonna promote your Twitter.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, he's definitely.
Yeah, if you want some good science content, that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. And then my Instagram is just me posting like once every 4 months. So if you like the occasional treat, follow me there.
I'm geek. But thank you so much again. Be on the lookout for more episodes and also stay tuned for all the special guests that I will have on in the future. I'll continue to have amazing conversations with incredibly dope people that I've met throughout my many adventures through life. Also, follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Through Jeremiah's Eyes for updates and more content. And it would be amazing if you could also like, share, and subscribe to my podcast so you don't miss an episode and we can continue to grow this community. Thank you so much for your time, and I can't wait to see you in the next episode for another look through my eyes. See you soon.
Peace.